If I were asked to ask you to take out a piece of paper and write down 10 things that you feel that robs you of your peace, what would those 10 things be? And if you were to go back and examine that list, would you say that the majority of your answers are external situations or internal fears and anxieties? If I had to guess, I would say that probably the majority of your answers would be, if not all of your answers, would be external situations. Maybe it's a person that you're having trouble forgiving or that can't forgive you. Or maybe it's a situation at work or situation in your family that's causing this constant restlessness and unease. Because we have this idea that our peace is an outside in mentality, when really it's inside out. Like, we can bring peace to any situation that we are in, because wherever we go, there we are. But for some reason, we have it backwards, and we think that our external circumstances are the key to keep whether or not we have peace. So last week I showed you this line of continuum, and the definition for peace was freedom from disturbance or tranquility, all the way over here on this end. That's not peace, that's vacation. Because we don't live in a life that's free of disturbance or tranquility. These are few and far between. And as a character trait, to have peace in a peaceful situation, that isn't character. So I also gave you the definition of peacekeeper and peacemaker. A peacekeeper, if you remember, gives up their voice or their opinions, and they tamp down the voices and opinions of the people around them in order to keep the peace. And again, that isn't peace, that's codependence, when we are trying to manage and control everything around us in order to feel better, or vice versa. A peacemaker, if you recall, lives over here on the other side, because that's where the character shows up. When we are peaceful in a situation that is tense and chaotic and disruptive and confusing, that's where the peacemaker comes in. When we show people how to cooperate. And when we show people how to cooperate, that means that's an indication that there's a reason for people not to get along. And certainly we see that in our society, where we have different races and ethnicities and beliefs and religions and sexual orientations and just different ideas in general. So a peacemaker is able to live in that tension and live in that chaos and show people how to cooperate. We're going to talk about that more in depth next week, in week 3. But this week, for purposes of what robs us of our peace, we're going to hover here just for a little bit longer. So one of my favorite quotes from Henry Cloud is, I like to have a marker in my hand when I do this, never again forget that your internal life determines your outer success. So our internal life, what is going on inside of us, is what determines our outer success. So what is our internal life? Our internal life is the combination of our feelings, thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors that we have internalized from our experiences. The combination of our feelings, thoughts, behaviors, and beliefs that we have internalized from our experiences. And so I put a chart up here to give us some examples of this. And if you are someone who is struggling with peace right now, which, probably who isn't, this is a very helpful exercise. I got it from my therapist several years ago. So you just write down this category for the experience, and then a category for feelings, category for thoughts. You could also put beliefs in here, category for behaviors, and then the very adult consequences that comes out of this. So you can take a screenshot of this if you are watching on your smartphone right now. I will also put a picture of it on my Facebook. But so these are if you had a helicopter parent, if you had a codependent spouse or a parent, if you were abused, rejected, abandoned, if you had someone that was super controlling, an emotionally detached parent, I gave all the way through And you can read this in depth on your own. But the adult consequences of this is that, you know, we don't have personal boundaries. We give up our voice to keep the peace. We can't say no. We put too much on our plate. We cannot ask for help or admit our weakness. We're overwhelmed, exhausted, anxious. We cannot receive love. We take everything personal. We're on guard. We have our walls up. We're emotionally unavailable. Maybe we ourselves become controlling or passive aggressive, or we cannot self-reflect. When we have all of these issues, and we all do, to some degree, we all have these issues. The problem is that when we take those issues into our relationships and into the boardroom, like when we're in relationship, whether it's at work or in a marriage or in a family, when we're around people who cannot say no, that's really chaotic when no isn't in their dictionary. When we're around people that do not have personal boundaries, or they don't have their own voice and they can't stick up for themselves, that's when things are chaotic and we get all stressed out and we don't have peace, because we have this lack of identity and we have this lack of control over ourselves. And so the result of that is that we try to control our environment. We become very controlling of our circumstances because we think that this person is triggering us, and this person is letting us down, and this person is not doing what we ask, and this person is not living their life in a way that's healthy, and therefore I'm not at peace. Those are all signs that we have experiences in our life that we have not resolved. We have unforgiveness, unprocessed grief, unhealed wounds, false beliefs and thoughts, sabotaging behaviors. We all have these to some degree. Whether we think that we do or not, we were all raised by human parents, and human parents make mistakes because we're human. And these things get passed down. It doesn't have to necessarily be a tragedy. It could be, but it could be something as subtle as someone making fun of us the way that we spoke or the way that we looked. And that's carrying forward, and it shows up in all of these consequences. And so all of this, our internal life, our internal character structure, is what robs us of our peace. And when we constantly assume that it's outside, that this person is, if this person would just behave, then I could have a better day at work. Or if this person would behave, I could have a better day at home. Or we could have a better work situation. That's not being a peacemaker. That is being a peacekeeper. And that type of mentality keeps that hamster wheel going, and you are going to be in a spin cycle. And when we don't resolve these issues, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So take a look at that this week. Write down some experiences. Take a picture of this and fill in this chart. See what you come up with. Listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth and coming out of other people's mouths. When you hear like that criticism, that judgment, whatever, that's an indication that there's some internal peace that's just not happening. We are in charge of our peace, not everything out here. It's not the president. It's not the stuff that's going on in the world. It's us. We are in charge of our own internal life and our own internal peace, and we can bring that to each other, which we will talk about in week 4. So there's your homework for this week. If you want to follow along in the journal, you can go on to Amazon and get the journal and then write down your answers in here. So that's it. I will see you next week, you guys. Have a great week, and as always, please let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Take care.